I've done all the sandblasting on the wheels, but now it's time to make sure they're true, that they don't have a linear offset. So basically, I want to make sure that as this spins around, it doesn't wiggle too much like this. So I have an old rusty toolbox, dial indicator on a magnetic base, and as I spin the wheel around, it's not too bad. It's moving, but it's not moving that much, which is really cool. That means I don't have to do a lot of work to it. Actually, I think this one might be within an acceptable tolerance. So I'm going to check them all. Basically how it works is these long ones, you can, if it's low on one side and high on the other, you can loosen this and tighten that, and it brings it back that way until it's equal. I'm assuming that all of these are going to be pretty rusty. I on this one, you can see I've had to replace 2 of the spokes. I got lucky with the wheels. They were, all except for one, were pretty true as I ran them around with the feeler gauge. The other one I managed to get within a decent tolerance, but it's going to be out of spare anyway. So overall, I'm very happy with them. I've now got them all primed and painted and ready to go. Yesterday I had a day off to do some other things, so I took the time to do some research on buying the tires. I've found funny story. It's going to end up being me dealing with 3 different companies. One to get the inner tubes and the bands. Another one online to order the tires, and a third one to mount them for me. So between all 3 of those companies, hopefully I can get a nice set of tires. The tires I'm going to go with are a set of Dunlops. They're not too different from the original ones. They're not quite as high a profile, but they're pretty decent for the standard size for these, what's typically put on them. And Dunlop was the tire brand that was on the car originally, so that's kind of cool too. Keeping it, at least the brand original. The tires, the original tires aren't made anymore. You just can't get them anywhere. So this is the modern next best thing. Anyway, having the wheels, having 4 out of 5 of them true was it saved me a ton of work. And the one that was a little bit off, I managed to get within a decent tolerance, and it's gonna be the spare anyway. So anyway, that was nice progress. This looks awful, so I thought I'd show it to you. I just finished putting on a skim coat. I haven't sanded it at all, but it looks awful. It was all nice and black and uniform, and now it looks like this. Step by step, that's how it works. I just wanted to test fit these before before I paint the whole hood and stuff. Surprisingly not bad. The 3000 fit perfectly. The Austin Healey part, I had to bring in these 2 holes just a smidge to get it to line up. Also, the 3000 badge I had to bend down to match the contour of the hood. But oh, that's so exciting. So I mentioned last week that I needed to polish the front shroud, and that's why it wasn't mounted It was just set in place. I'm now polishing it, and what that entails is, well, let me back up a bit. When it was sprayed, it got some orange peel, which is pretty common, especially for beginner painters like myself. And the way to fix it is to wet sand it. Orange peel is exactly as it sounds. It is a defect in the paint where it's not perfectly smooth. It kind of is the texture of an orange peel. And the way you take care of it is you take some very fine sandpaper, some wet sandpaper, and you go through and sand it and knock it down, knock off the high spots, and bring it all down into level. So I've been wet sanding, then I've been taking this squeegee and squeegeeing it off. I don't know if you can see any of this on camera because it's a very fine detail. When I squeegee it off, I'm able to see if I've gotten down far enough. Right now I can see in this area that there's some flat spots where I can see I knocked it down, but there's still some glossy spots where it's still lower. I can't feel this with my finger. It's only a visual thing. So that means I gotta keep sanding with water, and this is 1200 grit sandpaper. Then once I have everything down to a flat, it turns into a kind of matte surface. I go over it again, wet sanding with 2000 grit paper. And then after that, I get the buffing wheel out. I'll show you all that later, but this is just the process. So I get the buffing wheel out with cutting compound, and that brings it up to its first gloss. Then there's a polishing that goes on, and then you can put wax on top of that. And basically you'll end up with a mirror finish. But before I get there, I've got a lot more hand sanding to do. Okay, so after the 1200 grit wet sanding, I went over it again with the 2000 grit, and now it's time to start polishing. So after a brief moment of panic this morning, what happened, I had the whole shroud off when I took off the grill and all of that, but I was worried that it might not go in with the shroud on, and this is after I've already installed it. So it does go in, luckily. So I don't have it bolted in place yet. The chrome bit around the outside, all the way around there, is getting replaced. This one underneath, underneath there, it's all it's really rusted. So replating is not even an option. And I'm replacing that and the top piece too. They're just very, very slow to arrive. Anyway, I wanted to make sure that I could get the grill in place with the shroud on. So yeah, you can. That's good to know. If you like this video, click the like button below. If you want to come along on the ride as we complete this project, click the subscribe button. If you want to make sure Google reminds you every time there's a new video, click the alarm bell. Your support is very much appreciated.